Welcome back to another episode of Around the Big Ten, and as always, I am your host, Lucy Rohden. This week, I'm going to take a closer look at what to expect in Happy Valley this fall. Penn State finished 2017 at 10-2 and was just 4 points away from an undefeated season. The Penn State offense was lethal last year, averaging over 40 points and 400 yards a game, and that was thanks in part to quarterback Trace McSorley. McSorley led the Big Ten in total offense and passing yards and will be returning for his senior season. However, running back Saquon Barkley is leaving State College for the NFL. Barkley led the league with over 2,100 all-purpose yards, and when Penn State played Iowa this year, Saquon Barkley almost ran me over on the sidelines, and I definitely saw my life flash before my eyes, so I can only imagine how relieved Big Ten defenses are to see him go. Penn State is also losing a good chunk of their offensive playmakers, including tight end Mike Gesicki and wide receiver Deshaun Hamilton. Penn State should return a solid offensive line next season, and they'll be blocking for junior running back Miles Sanders, who will have some tough cleats to fill next year, but I expect him to be one of the better running backs in the Big Ten in 2018. And at one of their spring practices, head coach James Franklin had some high praise for his new starting running back.
The challenge is he'll make 4 people miss and go 80, and we're all like, next play, because we've been a little spoiled with Saquon Barkley for the last couple of years. But I do think Miles is, in that conversation, in terms of what he's been able to show and what he's been able to do so far.
Well, hopefully for Penn State, Miles Sanders can help get that defense ready to face some high-caliber players next season, as the Nittany Lions are facing heavy losses on that side of the ball as well. Penn State will lose linebackers Jason Kabinda and Manny Bowen, but they'll have some talent lined up to fill those roles next year. Incoming freshman Micah Parsons will come into Happy Valley as the top-ranked linebacker in the 2018 recruiting class, and he is talented enough to see significant playing time and possibly a starting role this season. The Penn State secondary is losing safety Marcus Allen, but will see the return of quarterback John Reed. Reed was sidelined in 2017 with a knee injury, but will be back this year to lead that defense. The safety spot is looking a bit iffy for Penn State this season, and the D-line is also looking a little uncertain right now, with a lot of turnover at the defensive tackle spots. But here's what head coach James Franklin had to say about what he is seeing from his defensive unit so far this spring.
I think we're in a really good place. We're pretty confident about where we're at defensive end. It needs to be a strength of our defense while our D tackles grow and mature inside, and the same thing at Mike linebacker. So I think, obviously we had a lot of turnover in terms of 4 seniors in the secondary leave, but the guys behind them have played a lot of football, and the defensive ends should be able to help with that as well in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback.
Penn State is also bringing in a top 5 recruiting class this year, so lack of talent will not be an issue for James Franklin and his staff. But let's take a look at who those new faces will see next year on the schedule. Penn State will open up their season with a home matchup against Appalachian State out of the Fun Belt, and then they'll head to Pittsburgh in Week 2 and wrap up the non-conference at home against Kent State. The Nittany Lions will open up conference play at Illinois and will face Iowa and Wisconsin at home for their West Division crossover games. And Penn State's toughest matchups this season will be in Happy Valley against Ohio State and Michigan State. Starting off the season against Appalachian State will be a much tougher matchup than people think. App State finished last year with 9 wins and a blowout of Toledo in the Dollar General Bowl. Well, growing up in North Carolina, I can tell you that the Nears certainly haven't forgotten when they beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, and they're definitely looking for a repeat Big Ten upset. However, I think Penn State is just too talented for App, but I see that game being closer than expected. But looking at the bigger picture for the Nittany Lions, the big question this year is whether or not James Franklin will finally be able to get his team to the playoff, and I just don't see that happening. This season, Penn State's losses coming into the season are heavy, and although they have a significant amount of young talent coming in, experience makes a difference, and I don't think the talent of Penn State can handle the experience of a program like Michigan State. So I've got the Nittany Lions finishing second in the East behind the Spartans. But that's all I've got for you today on Penn State and Big Ten football, but be sure to come back next week for more. And while you're at it, check out DITV live every morning at 8:30. And in case you were wondering from earlier, that is the correct way to pronounce Appalachian, so don't say I never taught you anything. Once again, I am Lucy Rohden. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.